to acknowledge the two very beautiful welcomes, actually. So thank you, the acknowledgements of country. It's nice to be in a space where we're all actually energized and excited to do this, so I really appreciate that. So we might kick off today to inspire you a little bit more around moonshot thinking. And we do have a short video, an oldie but a goodie.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what? I think I can build a space elevator, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
Don't know if those in the room have seen the movie Hidden Figures, but it took quite a few interesting measurement experiments and actually somebody really pushing the boundaries to say, no, this is the way, this is actually what's going to make it really successful. So now that we've just heard the phrase moonshot thinking, those sort of audacious goals that seem really impossible to reach, if we think about what gets measured, gets managed, in today's rapidly evolving landscape, do we feel like we're truly measuring what matters? Are we aiming high enough? And do we believe that we have the right set of tools to know where to invest our next dollar? This is really the focus for today. And thinking about modern measurement isn't necessarily just about tracking data. It's about harnessing the data to fuel innovation, provide context, embrace variety, and keep up pace with velocity, particularly velocity. It's about adopting a moonshot mindset, I suppose. And when we think about here of innovation, it's not just about incremental improvements, it's about groundbreaking leaps, I suppose. Pushing beyond traditional metrics, and we sort of spoke about a few different metrics today, and thinking about what metric do I really want? What is something that excites me? It's not possible now, but I really need it. Think of AI-powered predictive analytics or real-time customer journey mapping. I guess attribution models that can really take into account the complexity of lots of different consumer behaviors that are changing today. And when we think about context, marketers really need that context. They need to be able to link that data with those right business goals, I suppose, and really understanding the why behind the what, which we heard over here earlier today. The modern marketing landscape is truly a tapestry of channels and touch points. So really making sure that we embrace this variety is really, really important.
Awesome, thank you. So let's put one step back and discuss why we are actually talking about this concept. Because in a recent survey that we ran recently, we realized that 83% of CMOs agree with what Beck said earlier about the fact that measurement is the biggest unlock to driving growth in short term and long term. But only 45% of the CFOs have confessed that they have historically didn't agree with increasing the marketing budgets year on year because the business cases that they have received is not demonstrating a very clear line to value. So as a marketer, if you don't know what results are you're driving or you're responsible for driving, the kind of conversation that you are going to have with your CFOs would be limited to something like, hey, how was your weekend, and that's it. But we really wanted to just talk CAGR, growth, and what you are going to just plan to do next to drive that growth over time. But let's address the biggest elephant in the room. Measurement is hard. Measurement is difficult. We feel you. And we have heard you many times saying that. And it used to be quite easy in the past, where you had attribution modeling set up, collecting data across your entire media mix from different sources, and then the fragmented data become much easier to manage, and you have a single source of truth. But as marketers got savvier and as platforms got bigger and more complex, and the consumer path to conversion became more influenced by so many touch points along the journey, you ended up working with so many data tools and measurement tools to drive strategic decisions and operational decisions at the same time. So in today's day and age, the data accessibility and granularity that you had is now becoming really difficult to stitch together. But the measurement toolkit has evolved at the same time. Marketers can no longer expect to just observe and attribute all of their conversions by just looking at pixels, tags, consumer path to journey, and so on. Modern measurement is a topic that we have chosen to represent Google point of view in this space, which is grounded on the fact that no tool has all the answers anymore. A combined approach where attribution, data-driven attribution, incrementality experiments, and MMM is required to enable you to have a better, robust conversation with your CFO and CEO. But given that no tool is perfect, we will cover the pros and cons at the same time. So let's start with data-driven attribution. It's just basically assigning credit to all the touch points that was influential to driving that conversion, right? So it's been really great because it is connected to AI-powered bidding, and this facilitates increasing the performance over time. But it is only limited to your digital channels only. And I think this is the most influenced by all of the privacy regulations and all the conversations that are happening in this space. MMM, which obviously is my favorite, it is actually looking at all of your media and non-media factors to understand what the role of each touch point has been in driving that growth for your business and what has been the ROI across the board. It is a durable measurement because it doesn't need any user-level data or cookie-based data to work. But there are some downside to it. It can be expensive if you're actually running it through a third party. But the data complexity, which I was so happy to see that data quality was the top in that poll that we just ran. Data quality, data collection has been one of the biggest barriers in this space. And incrementality experiments is so simple. One group see the ad, the other group don't see. The difference in performance between the two groups, it actually shows the impact of your ad. It is the gold standard because it is actually run at the user level, but it provides a snapshot of a concrete strategy at a concrete point in time, so the results could be a little bit difficult to scale. But in the world of marketing measurement, we often find ourselves only working with one of these tools at a time. Only MMM, or only DDA, or only running experimentation or analysis. They offer, as we saw just now, they offer each valuable insights, but the truth is, these tools are more impactful together than alone. So by combining these tools, we create a continuous cycle of learning and improvement. You know, MMM and attribution, sorry, one back. Oh, sorry, how can I go back? Oh. My apologies. MMM and attribution help us identify areas for experimentation, incrementality experiments, validate our MMM results, and also the results coming from your experiments can then feed back into your MMM to make the results more actionable and more accurate. So this interconnected approach allows us to move beyond clicks, as we saw earlier, beyond impression, and also take a very truly data-driven decision for our business. So we at Google, we are really committed to make this super simple for you and scalable for you both at the same time. And we are going to show you some examples about how we are approaching this. Let's start by talking about variety and velocity. Velocity is all about speed. We saw earlier that it is really important for businesses to be agile, to respond to consumer path to journeys and all of the things that are being impactful in your measurements and also your businesses in a very quick way. And variety talks about the fact that data quality and data granularity really matters. And I'm going to talk about a few of those examples shortly. But this trifecta model that we've just discussed, the combined approach between all of those measurement tools, the power that they have in looking at the combination of macro and micro perspective, it is designed to just deliver that in a scale. So the data variety and velocity is forever changing, and the types of data that you are collecting across multiple touch points that you spend money on, it is also changing at the same time. But there is one real concept that you need to think about at all times. Better data, provided with the right concept, that's your ultimate actionable plan across your entire marketing mix. Because historically, something like YouTube ROI, out-of-home ROI, TV ROI, really great outputs of coming out of any MMM, right? So they were really insightful in helping you to make better budget decision planning for your business. But let's be honest, they were not driving any actions. You didn't know what to do next to increase that YouTube ROI by 10%, 20%, 100% over time, right? Same as out-of-home and TV ROI. That's where the data granularity comes into play. If you understand what execution you have done in the past and what decisions that you have made about utilizing different ad formats on YouTube, targeting new audience on YouTube, the device strategy that you had as part of that execution is influencing your total bottom line. That's where the beauty starts. That's where the optimization starts shining. One of the great ways to achieve that maturity in your measurement journey is to think about how you can get granular in the data that you collect across all of your media mix. And the second one is the fact that the consumer behavior is changing and the unique routes that they take to purchase and convert is forever changing. Isn't that true, Laura?
I wish arrow. You can tell we're measurement experts, not tech experts, so hopefully build some credibility. So with consumer behavior changing, therefore us as marketers and the way we need to, I guess, reach and approach consumers is changing. And historically, we might consider human behavior and the way that we applied marketing efforts like a funnel. And what Amir showed, we'll put it in different pockets. We'd say, okay, upper funnel, this is this ROI, lower funnel, this is this ROI. But some of you may remember our colleagues speaking about this last year, or you may have sort of seen a few things online. And the reality is that we see that the funnel is a lot messier now, I suppose. And across our research the past 3 years and looking at audience-based data, we can see that consumers really are taking unique pathways to convert. Multiple platforms, multiple times, I suppose, a lot more exploration, which is why granular data and attributing it is really, really important. I'll show you a tangible example. So if we think about this example here, this is someone potentially seeking running shoes, right? You might speak to a friend, you might search online, you might watch some videos, some reels have popped up that you've really been influenced by. And I think this is where granularity is really important for attribution accuracy. MMMs are changing at the speed of light, but so are consumer behaviors. And so if we think about this behavior as a consumer, not necessarily like a funnel, this has actually prompted publishers to think about different ad buying innovations. One example at Google you may have used or heard of is Performance Max or PMax. It's essentially our type of ad buying format so that you can buy this, you can just target this, rather than having to think about, okay, well, how much TV do I need to buy? And then how much video on YouTube, how much social, how much search, so I can capture this behavior and this consumer purchasing. We've created one format to do so. But this can bring some challenges, I suppose. Whilst it benefits the marketer to think about how they're buying ads to therefore drive a strong ROI, if we're thinking about the way that we're using generalized MMMs to then therefore attribute and decide this is the ROI for this media format, where does this type of AI-powered media format sit? And how can we make sure that it's presented correctly in MMMs? What's our point of view?
That's a very good question. Because in order to just meet the consumers and help marketers to meet their consumers where they are, we keep adding new features, new products to our mix in order to just help you to drive that growth over time. So these products are new, such as PMax. Our point of view on how they need to get measured is still quite meh, because we need more use cases and we need more data sources to just understand how they need to be represented and how they need to be measured in your MMMs as an example. But the point of view that we have at this point is to represent those AI-powered ads as a separate channel. Like PMax should be a separate channel, but that needs to be supported by the right context, and I'm going to just give you one example. So we heard about moonshot thinking earlier. It's not about the focus on that 10%. It's about how to enable your measurement tools to drive 10x times of everything that you have in the past. So this level of granularity, everything that has been highlighted, these are levers to help you to just pull and maximize that growth over time. As I said earlier, context is key. Looking at your YouTube ROI, out-of-home ROI, TV ROI without having the right context, it is going to be extremely limiting for the next steps that you are going to undertake as in the future. It's easy to think about context when we only talk about marketing and media, but the reality is there are so many other variables that find their way into your MMMs, and these are just a few examples. But let's focus on marketing data and competitor data, and let's bring that context to just show you a couple of examples. So by just looking at that graph, your MMM provider, your in-house MMM modelers, they would say, oh, your YouTube ROI went up just because the CPM quite significantly reduced. That's cool, but so what, right? What am I going to do next by just looking at this limited information? When the context actually just brings to the table, when you partner up with us, at your publishers, at your agencies, we can bring so many colors to the mix to explain the why. MMMs more often than not generate more questions than answers. And that context and the first party data that we have access to at Google, for example, we can bring so many contexts to explain the why and provide the why to those questions. So context is key.
Awesome. So I'm glad you all picked data quality, because as an analyst, that's really important to me. And despite being an analyst, I spend a lot of my time, I suppose, exposing bias within data and ways that we need to think about data differently. So in addition to getting rich insights about the media, I suppose, in my experience, sometimes we don't go wider in terms of collecting other data sources, and consumer behavior has changed, particularly with brand disloyalty, one example. So we need to think as marketers differently about how we're understanding brand loyalty or brand consideration and the like. I want to use a popular metric here, which is share of search, an example, post-analysis from Les Binet. And it was used, I guess, as a potential for search to be able to predict market share and being an alternative to questionnaires or surveys, which can often be unreliable due to sample sizing, lag times, or granularity. They can get outdated really quickly. So whilst branded share of search continues to be a really powerful and effective way to measure interest in brands, depending on the industry or the changes within consumer behavior, we need to think a little bit differently about how we actually make up this metric. So the metric might stay the same, share of search, but how do we calculate share of search specifically? And how can we also think about complementary metrics to get the full picture? There he is, right there in the room, the first person who I suggested this to, because there wasn't actually a correlation. And so we wanted to think about alternative metrics, and this is it. So first of all, what we're observing is that consumers are increasingly searching generically. So think of best electric car, best internet plan, or who has my favorite pair of nudie jeans on sale right now? You're really searching generically. You're seeking about what's on offer. If we as marketers are only looking at this, how often our brand is searched versus competitor brands, we might be missing out on a huge sample size of how consumers are actually searching and then purchasing. We're creating ourselves a bit of a blind spot. So what are our alternatives and how can we regain that context? Complementary variables such as click-through rate, I see a nod, is really helpful to understand and have an apples for apples comparison, where sometimes we lose to other metrics versus peers, of how likely is our brand considered and then chosen. So imagine you're in the market for a hybrid car. You've been researching for a while, you've potentially watched some videos, you've read some reviews, you've spoken to people, but you're still not quite sure what you want to buy. So you go to search and you search best EV 2024. And then you see a particular manufacturer and you think, that's right. I remember seeing an ad, different channel, that potentially they won a CanStar award, something that really influenced you, that you remembered. So you click and you book a test drive. This is becoming an increasingly typical example of a consumer journey. The non-branded search, the intention, the engagement, something we would have missed if we were only looking at the branded search demand. By accessing context to the category we operate in and the changes to consumer behaviors, we can make sure we're looking at a much more complete data set. Let's look at a few more examples. Often seasonality data and I suppose consumer behaviors and economic changes that are happening, we use in our MMMs, or we use in incrementality studies, or we might calibrate against our MMMs, I suppose. It can help us predict how different seasonal events can impact our marketing efforts and answer questions such as, what is the quantity of external factors impacting my company's revenue right now? But in a short amount of time, consumer and economy changes and context can change quite a lot. So our data too must expand. If we think of some of the context here, thinking about fuel prices, often this was a really popular metric for cost of living. However, thinking about the advancements of government rebates, the accessibility to charging stations, more consumers now are interested in EV or a hybrid car. So we must think really differently about proxies for cost of living and what we're thinking about. The second one is mobility. Within privacy changes, us as marketers need to think really differently about how we're collecting information about store visits or out of home. Sometimes we could think about other data sets like maps trends, or one of my favorite, census. Why not use census data and thinking about population data and household data to model against our existing data sets to make it more meaningful? And then lastly, seasonality. So seasonality is what we think about, seasonal sales events or public holidays. But this is changing. So if we think about a really popular seasonal sales event like Black Friday, this actually started exceeding Boxing Day in 2019. It's not really so far away. And we're in a multicultural market. So thinking about public holidays that expand what we potentially perceive as our own, they do need to expand. They do need to expand to Chinese and Lunar New Year because they make up majority of demand. And then lastly, a really recent example, which is Olympics, I suppose. So I guess ask yourself, how did you watch the opening ceremony this year? Olympics is a huge opportunity to gain reach, really popular media buying opportunity, but this was a very different time zone this year. So media consumption really grossly differs from season to season. So if you're not using the most relevant data to essentially account for consumer demand changes, you might potentially have used your results for your media ROI that happened in 2021 to decide your media buying for this year. But that may have not made sense purely based on the time zone. So really thinking about these nuances within context can really improve your data quality. But you might be thinking, that's great. I really value the insights. I'd love more data. I potentially have more data, but I really don't want to lose velocity. I need to make fast decisions, I suppose. I hear you. Using recent and relevant data sources will keep up with a shifting economy, but it is a fine balance, and it does take a lot of in-house expertise to ingest, clean, and automate to produce repeatable results. But in order to compete, we really need to ensure that we find alternatives, I suppose, to improve velocity, because competitor behaviors won't wait for us to catch up, I suppose. So we really want to have the ambition to think big, but start small. We do acknowledge it won't happen overnight. So we're going to share a couple of innovations that we're actively using, potentially that you can take away with you today and think about. The first one is key driver analysis, or KDA. It's not new. It is a statistical analysis that quickly observes and weighs the importance between potential drivers, independent and dependent variables. With the advancement, I suppose, of machine learning, what is new is that this is now more accessible. Not necessarily as many excuses to not use it. There's an opportunity here for us to think about how we're ingesting different data sources, all of that granularity that we spoke about before, to get the outputs that we need. So when you do have a lot of data available or variables to work with, I guess this is the most crucial opportunity to include this in a measurement experiment. Thinking about running incrementality experiments, understanding the causal impact of factors before we include them in an MMM. KDA can be really helpful to decide what variables you want to use. So let's look at a practical example. Interest for home loans. There is a lot of change on this graph. Heaps of different changes. Requires probably a lot more context, a lot more data sets to really understand what exactly is going on and how we might want to adjust our marketing efforts to take advantage of, what channels, formats, or different sort of ROI levers to pull to sort of capture these peaks. Or we might think one of these peaks are negative and we actually don't want to capture this at all, but how can we be confident? This is where KDA comes in. Potentially we might think these spikes are from interest rates. We're sort of thinking, we might be happy to go with this, close enough is good enough, this is the majority of the impact. But reality is there is no average Aussie. There is a lot of variables at play here, and KDA can help us quickly remove our bias and quickly weigh what's going on to make a decision, with an output looking something like this. Historically, though, KDA can be cumbersome. It can be very, very manual. But with access to this now with machine learning, we can ingest multiple data sets to sort of quickly weigh up some of the impact scores to sort of know how to move forward. This can make sure we establish a culture of variety within the signals that we use within our measurement. But where KDA can be helpful for the data that we already have access to, what about data we don't have access to, or some of the blind spots that we have? I want to use a few moments to talk about large language models, or LLMs. This really does uncover blind spots about consumer or competitive behaviours. If we think about survey, consumer review, or other textual-based data sets, and I think about this on the data that I'm sitting on, which is search data, the evolution of natural language has really strengthened our ability to understand what's going on with consumers and really, uncover new patterns to understand demand and competitive behaviours. So we'll use a few examples. In measurement or in marketing, competitor data is really, really important. And particularly we get a lot of questions of, is my decline in sales because of competitors or is the category softening? It's a question I get all the time. New brands and challenger brands are emerging absolutely all of the time, so we need to stay on top of a constantly changing marketplace. Because what LLMs do well is natural language, for textual-based data sets, one of our largest benefits is expanding from explicit to thinking about more implied or intent-based, so something that we really know and we understand. So when I think about explicit, you could all probably guess, okay, best NBN plans, you might come up with Optus, Vodafone, Aussie Broadband. But if we think about implied intent, would you have thought up Tangerine or Swoop? LLMs allow us to improve at scale, capturing implicit intent and improve precision and velocity to really understand what competitive behaviours are going on. This makes us a little bit more aware of what's going on in the category and also moving away from close enough is good enough to sort of our data quality and understanding. But you might think, okay, I'm familiar with the internet category and this looks like a pretty small brand. Not a lot of magnitude, it's not really driving much, so I'm probably happy with the close enough, good enough bucket. This is an example in the beauty category. And it shows how quickly a brand can establish and grow. So Metco Beauty here in red was absolutely non-existent in 2019. In the space of 12 months, they grew 10x and they have sustained. Through this powerful AI and using LLMs, we can uncover clues that us as humans, me as an analyst, cannot pick up quick enough. And in this example, it is clear that there is an opportunity to use technology to improve velocity to understand what's going on with competitors a lot more and understand how we can adapt our campaign activity to drive market share. It's not just helpful to uncover new competitors. It can actually help us understand, a changing baseline and interest in what could be impacting sales. Let's say you're a consumer electronic company or a telco, and you're really wanting to understand the opportunity within consumers who are seeking to buy a new phone but want a more cost-effective option. So you want to pull used phone data just to understand that baseline and if it's changing. You want to use this as a proxy, you might calibrate it against your MMM to understand that commercial opportunity. But if we were only using this explicit intent for sort of used or secondhand phones, we might miss this implied intent, refurbish, implied for a used phone, technically. And actually what we see here, the trend is dramatically different. Combined, it absolutely exceeds. And so it might uncover that you're actually under-indexing in a commercial opportunity versus your competitors in used phone sales. This example spans multiple industries. I don't have enough time. I would love any of you to come and see me, and I could probably give you one on the spot. But honestly, there are so many evolutions in the way consumers find value post-price that we're seeing. We're seeing it within points versus discounts. Think about novated leasing, so post-tax value, new way consumers are buying. So imagine you're a bank, you've noticed a decrease in car loans, and this might give you a more expansive or updated data set to understand more about the customer and thinking about where they might be finding other ways to buy cars and why that demand might be down. So I'll leave you with how you could potentially use LLMs on your own first-party data sets. One idea is review data. Imagine you've launched a new product, but you've started to see a decline in ROI and a lower conversion rate. But you're going to double check your reviews of that product just to make sure there's not something else going on, there's not other factors at play on why potentially your sales are softening. But you average 4.7 stars, it's pretty good. It is entirely possible though that you receive a review where the review is high but the sentiment is low. This is one I pulled off Reddit the other week. 4 stars, pretty generous, actually put a lot of nice feedback in there, but in the end said it's put me off ordering again. A lot of clues in this review. It is astounding how humans don't necessarily mean what they say, and so the insights lie within the words they share, and the sentiment can actually be unlocked through LLMs and really understanding what we do. In this case, there could be clues here to really understand potentially our campaigns haven't actually, capped out or stopped working, we've reached diminishing returns. There are some clues here potentially why our conversion rates have slowed down. So now we want to leave you with one last opportunity and innovation for your modern marketing measurement.
Thank you. And, to achieve moonshot thinking in your measurement, I think the last missing part of the puzzle is just innovation. So let's pause for a moment, because we talked about velocity, variety in your data, supported by the right context, LLMs, to just enable actionable insights in your marketing strategy. But now let's talk about innovation. Many organizations, we have actually seen that they have been adopting MMM as their, to gain competitive advantage in the industry that they operate in. And it has given them the chance to refine their marketing strategy based on their insights. And that's exactly what we did with ANZ New Zealand a couple of months ago, when they partner up and also with their measurement partner to just bring this modern measurement to life. And as a result, we could actually see 52% year-over-year growth on their YouTube investment and YouTube ROI. So is what ANZ did something that we encourage everyone to do? Absolutely. In fact, they should likely be doing more of that, because MMM is experiencing a massive resurgence. It was invented back in 1970s, but all of the changes in data privacy regulations, competition, consumer behavior, media buying, and AI, they have actually just energized the power of MMMs, and they have made them more suitable to this marketing landscape that is rapidly changing to these days. So we talked about velocity, variety, the different marketing measurement tools that you have in your toolbox. And all of these needs to be achieved with ease and simplicity, because as I said earlier, that's our ambition at Google. So with that in mind, let me introduce you to Meridian. Well, all of these innovations have been built in for you. So back in March, we announced that for the first time, we are going to release an open source MMM solution called Meridian, which will be available later this year. And our ambition behind this is to enable modern measurement in action, rather than just treating it as a concept. We really wanted to just simplify everything that we talked about today in a tool and in a product. So it is built to enable privacy, durable, advanced measurement following the gold standards. And it is anchoring on core key pillars. Innovations, because I'm going to talk about some of them shortly. Transparency, it is going to be open source, just like how we have released Android, Ads Data Hub, Causal Impact. They are all open source as well. And this is going to be another one. Actionability, because Meridian can handle that level of complexity in your data inputs across your entire media mix. It's not only a tool that evaluates your Google performance, it's across all of your media channels. And actionability, because the Meridian is able to just provide really actionable insights that is going to be quite useful. Let's talk about the innovations. The first one, and I absolutely love the question that the publicist person asked earlier. We know for a fact that handling and measuring paid search is one of the biggest challenges in the world of MMM. Why? Because they are usually always on, they don't saturate, They have a very strong correlation with seasonality, price, promotion, and everything that we saw. And we know for a fact that their nature is so different. They are more like a pull media rather than push, like upper funnel. And it becomes, when it comes to modeling and MMM, it becomes really difficult to just isolate the true impact of paid search in driving that growth for your business. So our new guidance through Meridian is to leverage organic Google query volume or organic search in general to just control your model. So again, on the transparency, if you get your query volume across other search channels, plug them in. And Meridian can also handle that. The second innovation is the domain knowledge. You know your business and you know your customer better than anyone. And you have previously run so many experimentation in the past. The results were quite amazing. You have run MMMs in the past. You have a very great understanding of how the ROIs across your marketing channels have been. It would be a remiss of those data and insights to not be able to inform the accuracy of your future MMM. And that's why we are making it super easy for you to just ingest all of your domain knowledge that you have about your business coming from your data-driven attribution, incrementality experiments in one simple way into Meridian. And we have actually seen brands who have done that. They have achieved a significant increase in the accuracy of the MMMs that they have built. And the third one, which is really groundbreaking in the world of MMM that never existed in the past. Just quick question, how many people have heard about the term response curve in MMMs? Great, cool, a few. So response curve is about the fact that you put your impression on the x-axis, your y-axis will be your sales. You clear a correlation between the number of impressions and your sales. So the number of impressions goes up, you expect to receive more sales as a result, but it diminishes at some point. With Meridian, we are offering a new concept. We are introducing a new concept, which is response surface. One of my customers actually just called it the interstellar of MMM, which I took it as a compliment. But the idea is you have your frequency on the y-axis, on the x-axis, you have your sales on the y-axis, but you have your reach on the z-axis. The benefit of doing so is to enable you to treat video and the screen differently. You're not only using impression, video views, clicks, some of them don't like that, to evaluate how your video has performed in terms of driving sales. You're taking reach and frequency into consideration, which we know for a fact that they're really influencing your ROI across your video channels in general. And Meridian is going to just create a very great solid foundation for future innovations, because innovations, it is absolutely critical in this space. And Meridian and all the innovation pipeline that we have, and we will be releasing in the next couple of years, will enable marketers to just run a very solid MMM for their businesses. And as I said earlier, Meridian is going to be an open source, easily digestible by data scientists, MMM partners to look under the hood, see what's happening, if relevant, plug them into the environment that they have already created. Just like our ads data hub, which is a very privacy safe, using Google data to just perform some further analysis. So I'm just seeding some ideas about how would you like us to do more of these kind of like innovations in the future. Think about Meridian and Ads Data Hub. As a business, what's in it for you? What do you expect us to do and integrate these two together in the future? We are open to hear your feedback. So let's wrap things up. We talked about the fact that better data supported by the right context will enable smarter actions. And Meridian is just going to enable that modern measurement in a much easier and faster way. But let me clarify that for you. Google doesn't have any intention of becoming an MMM partner, or we don't have any plans to cannibalize the business models of our valued partners. This is just to have a seat on the table to encourage everyone to rethink about how measurement needs to be done in this era, in this rapidly changing era, where AI is a massive contributor, where the consumer path to conversion is more complex than ever. So innovation is key, and Meridian is going to be a very big step in this space that we are taking forward. It is really important because I can still see that some of those MMMs are only based on spend, which is extremely limited. But think about Google query volume, reach and frequency, and all the results that you have about your domain knowledge, about your previous experimentation, would enable your MMM to become suitable to this journey. And we opened with moonshot thinking. All of those ambitions that they seem to be quite unachievable, but think small, but think big, take baby steps towards that maturity. And if Laura and I would like to just leave you with one piece of advice, is the fact that thoughtful measurement isn't just about collecting data, it's about using that data to drive growth. And collecting a very high quality data with the right level of granularity at the right velocity, supported by the context, is going to enable you to make better informed, data-informed decisions for your business. Thank you. And if you scan the QR code, we'll make sure to just send a copy of Modern Measurement Playbook to you in the next couple of weeks, and also provide us with some feedback. Thank you.